Hello and welcome to 3D Studio Max. I am your instructor, Domiko L. Cunningham. And today, what we wanted to talk about was actually the UV texture editor. One of the things inside of 3D, if you're trying to get a 3D object to actually have some type of visual texture on it, one of the things you have to learn how to do is to unwrap your 3D object. And by unwrapping your 3D object, basically you're creating some 2D reference points on your three-dimensional object so that you can map images or text or your textures onto your object. So let's look at that process, because right now if I were to take this box and I have this texture right here sitting on my desktop, got this great texture for this six-sided die, and I want to get this texture onto this box. Now, of course, we could come in here and go into our modify panel, and I could come in here and go to my modify list, and I could place something like this UVW map onto our box. Now, this UVW map, the mapping can be either planar, and right now you see a plane running through the middle of my object, and that's why this is set to planar. I could set it to box, meaning that it's going to try to place an image on all 6 of the sides of this box. So let's go make a texture really. Let's go make a shader really quick. So I'm going to hit the M key, so I can open up my slate material editor, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab standard material and drag that into my view. So with this material, I'm going to double click on it. So when you see these dotted lines around your material, that means that material is actually active. So that's great. So what I want to do is I'm going to change the name of this. I'm going to call this dice, and I'm just going to call this UVW map, so I know which shader this is. And here for underneath my maps inside of this, I'm going to go to my diffuse color, and I'm going to click on none, and I'm going to click on bitmap. We have to remember that every map inside of Max is considered a bitmap, whether it's a JPEG or a TIFF or a Targa. They're all considered bitmaps. So I've got this image, and what I want to do with this, I'm going to still have this selected, and I want to choose that I want to show shaded material in viewport. So I'm going to click on this right here. When you click on that, you'll notice that the name of your shader actually turns half red. That's telling me that this shader is going to be visible in the viewport. So I'm going to come over here and grab my box. I'm going to grab my shader by the output right here. So left mouse click and drag and drop it onto my box. Now you can see that this does put my image on all 4 sides, right? It did what I wanted it to do. It put it on all 4 sides. It's not really how I wanted it though. I wanted to have one of these squares on each one of the 4 sides, and this is not really what I was looking to have. So I need a better way to be able to do this. So I'm going to take my box right now, and I'm just going to duplicate my box. So let's clone my box. I'm going to clone it as a copy so it's independent of the original, and I'm just going to move the copy over. So here's my copy. So on my copy, I'm going to make a brand new shader. So I'm going to make a brand new shader, drag this over here, double click this, and this one's going to be called my dice underscore UVW, and we do another underscore and say unwrap. So the second box, we're going to actually unwrap it. So what I want to do is I'm going to come in here and grab this, my output, and drag it over to my second box. So one has one shader, one has the other. So what I'm going to do different is I'm going to get rid of this unwrap UVW on my second box. And let's even change these. This right here is going to be UVW underscore map. And this one right here is going to be UVW underscore unwrap. So we know which ones we're looking at. So what I want to do is I'm going to come to my modifier list, and I'm going to go in here and I'm going to look at I'm going to look at Unwrap UVW. So I'm going to click on that, and now you can see this menu is a lot different than the last menu. Now to be able to get to my UV editor, I want to open up my UV editor. So inside of my Unwrap UVW, I want to go to Edit UVs. Inside of Edit UVs, there's a button that says Open UV Editor. I'm going to click that and open it up. And this is my UV editor. Now I know it might look a little daunting when you look at it for the very first time. There's all these buttons and all this stuff all around the window, and it's like, oh my goodness, what is all this stuff? Well, don't freak out. There's this stuff in here. It's not really that hard to understand. What I am going to do though is I'm going to show you how we can actually lay this down flat. We can lay down our 3D object and make it flat so that we can actually see it. Now, the way I'm going to do that is I need to be able to manipulate the faces or the polygons of my object. So I'm going to come into polygon mode. So I just opened up my Unwrap UVW, go to polygon mode, and I'm going to click on one polygon. Now you can see with my UV editor window open, it's showing me that's one gigantic polygon right there, right? So what I need to do is I need to project this in some way. So I'm going to use planar mapping, because with planar mapping, I'm basically going to tell Max to project one way in a plane onto my surface so that I can capture basically So really what I'm going to do here inside of Max is I'm basically going to click on my polygon mode and then click on an actual polygon so that I can tell Max that I want to project a 2D mapping coordinate straight down on this one face. Now we need to figure out which way is up in our world, and we can see that up is Z. So to map this down, planar on this, I need to make sure this aligns to the Z. And I'm going to do a planar. It's going to be Z, and it's going to say fit. Right? Or you can center this out. So what I've basically done, if I come in here and click on my, no, let's not do that. So click on my polygon, I'm saying that I want to align planar map. I want to align this to Z. All right. So now I know which direction I want it to be aligned to. What I'm going to do is come in and get my Move and Select Object tool. Turn off projection for planar. When I do that, I can now grab this and drag this out. So as you do these pieces, you want to drag them out one by one. So on this piece over here, this is X. So I'm going to say I want to fit this one. There's X. Once I'm done, turn this off. And I'm just going to kind of arrange these in the way that they're coming off of my box. So this side over here is still going to be X. I'm going to do planar and hit X to align it to. Turn off my projection. Grab this and move this up here. And same thing for this one. Grab this. And this one's going to be Y. But let's turn on planar mapping first. And you can see when I first turn on planar mapping, this is really small, like a little small sliver over here. I want it to be this big gigantic face like it should be. Right? So now I'm going to hit Y for this. Let's turn off planar mapping. Let's take this and move this out of the way. Let's get this stuff kind of lined up little by little. Alright, so do the next one for this. This is going to go back to Z. It's going to be planar and hit Z. And this is going to go underneath the bottom, like right there. And then the last piece is right here. And this right here is also going to be planar mapping and do it on Y. And there it breaks apart there. I'm going to come in here and turn off my planar mapping, and now I can move my piece around. Now, you might say, well, you might say, well, how am I going to get this back together? There's like these gaps in this and everything else. Well, it's fine, and I'm going to show you how you can work with this. If I come in here and go to Edge mode, I'm going to click on this edge right here. Now, you can see something that's really weird because I clicked on this edge and this edge over here turns blue. What Max is trying to tell me is that these two edges belong together. So it's kind of like a little jigsaw puzzle. So I'm going to go back to polygon mode, click this polygon, I'm going to move this over here, and I'm going to grab this guy and move this over here. Because when I went to edge mode, it showed me that these two edges belong together. So I'm going to go back to polygon mode, and right here in my quick transform, you can see it says rotate around pivot, 90 degrees, negative 90, or either, so you can either go counterclockwise or clockwise. I'm going to go counterclockwise one time, and go back to edge mode, and now you can see those two edges are actually perfectly lined up. I'm going to click on this edge and see where this one belongs. This one, like it belongs down here, which is odd. So let's look and see which one here. Ah, we want this one. So I'm going to go back to polygon mode, click on polygon, and then I'm going to rotate this clockwise, and then we'll move this over here to where it is supposed to be. Split it pretty close. Make sure you get these guys pretty close, because you want to get them close enough so that they're not jumping around when you do the next operation. I'm going to go back to edge mode. I'm going to click on this bottom edge down here and see where this goes. And it looks like it's actually very odd, but it looks like it's telling me that this is over there. Well, that's fine, but those two are close together. Those are fine. I'm going to go to polygon mode, grab this polygon, hold control and grab the other one. Let's grab those two polygons. So I'm going to go to edge mode again and check something. Those two edges belong together. So back to polygon mode, grab this, drag this up to here, come back in here, grab these guys, drag them down to here. Alright, so back to edge mode. Let's see if our edges are lined up. Looks like they're still a little bit off. So let's move this guy around. So when you're laying out your UVs, it's an involved process, but the longer and the more time you spend laying out your UVs, the better off you're going to be. So I'm going to rotate this to right there. Let's go back to edge mode. It's turned right now. So I'm going to move this up here. Let's go to edge mode and then grab this down here. That belongs to that. So polygon, grab this guy, rotate, rotate. Now it's back into place where it should be. So now if I look at edge mode on this, I should see all my edge modes are lining up one by one as I click on them. So they're all lined up. So what I want to do next is I want to actually put these back together. I want to stitch these guys together. So you'll see I have some stitching stuff in here. So I can stitch in edge mode. I can go in here and stitch. So I can say I want to stitch to source. So if I come here and this is the source, and I'm going to say I want to stitch to source. It's actually, oh, that's really weird. That's good. Let's do this right here. Huh. Look, it's twisting it. It's just a target. It's very odd. Let's look at what's happening with this and why this is twisting like that. So let's go to edge mode. That edge belongs to that edge. That's right. All my edges are a little cockeyed, but we'll get it. We'll get it straightened out. I'm going to get this edge right here, and I'm going to average those together. And let's average these together. See, that's doing the same thing. It's kind of kooky. And I think what's happening is that my piece of geometry or my UV is actually flipped over. And I can easily fix that as well. I'm just going to go back into polygon mode, grab my UV, and I can come in here and say I want to flip it horizontally and flip it back over. So now if I come in here and go to edge mode and I put these two together, you can see it works perfectly fine. So the same issue is what's wrong here on this polygon. This right here, I'm going to click it and I'm going to flip it over. So I'm going to flip this vertically. And then now if I go back to edge mode, click these two guys, they still belong there. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to actually merge them together, and you can see they work just fine now. So everything is coming together fine. And so if you ever put two UVs together and they basically look like they're kind of shrinking into one point, that means that one has to be turned the wrong way. So it doesn't matter which one you flip over. I usually flip over the one that has the least amount of stuff connected to it. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to flip this not vertically because I don't want to move, I don't want to move this from here to down here. I want to just flip this piece over. So we're going to do this horizontally. And once I do that, go back to edge mode, grab my edge right here, and then we're going to stitch that just like that. Now the other thing is I can go into vertex mode. I can come in here and select over these vertices. I can get my move tool. So I can hit W on the keyboard, get my move tool, and I can actually move the stuff around and adjust it as well. Because I want this to be as straight as possible when I'm working with, my pieces. So I'm just going to kind of try to clean this up just a tiny bit. Not a lot, because it's a small space to work with anyway. So now I've got all that stuff laid out. I'm going to go back to polygon mode, and I'm going to come in here and select all those polygons. I'm going to get my scale tool. I'm going to scale them all down. Right? The reason why I need to scale all of these down is because there is a special section of mapping coordinates inside of Max. So I need to make sure that whatever I'm going to unwrap, that everything that I do for it fits inside of this box, inside of this checker box. This is my 0 to 1 space. It's the only space right now currently that I have that I can actually show things in, right? So I've got this set up. I've got my box laid out flat. I'm going to right click. Well, actually I'm going to come in here and go to the top level mode of my unwrap. I'm going to right click inside of my UV editor. Let's make sure I select my object. And it's like it is selected. So it's selected, got my object selected. So what I'm going to do inside of my UV editor, make sure my UV editor is open. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say render UVW template. And I'm going to do this template, let's do this template at 2048. Get a nice 2K texture. So it's 2048 this guy. And I'm going to say render UV template. When I do that, it pops open and brings open a window inside of Max. This is my UV template. So when you do that, it just doesn't make your template for you. You have to actually render out your template and then come here to the little save icon, a little floppy drive, hit save, and then I'm going to save this to the desktop. And I'm going to call this Dice Unwrapped UV. And I'm going to hit save. And make sure we choose a file format. That's why it's not saving. I'm just going to do something simple like JPEG right now. You normally wouldn't want to use JPEG because it's compressed, but we're just trying to kind of speed through this and hurry it along. So now that I have my UVW template, I have a template or a map. I have a map to how my 3D object is laid flat. So that is kind of cool because I have a map that I built now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go open up Photoshop. So let me go over here and make my way into Photoshop. So now I can come in here and make, regular textures inside of Photoshop. So I'm going to go into Photoshop and actually make myself some texture. So let's see. So here inside of Photoshop, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say File. I'm going to open this up. Let's give it a second to finish loading up because Photoshop wasn't active when we started this little process. Give it some time to find itself. So I'm going to hit File. I'm going to hit Open. And when I open this up, I am on my desktop and I'm going to go get my Dice Unwrap UVW. And I'm also going to open up my image that I had of my dice, of my die laid flat rather. So now I've got both of these inside of Photoshop. I'm going to drag one of these guys out just so I can get one to go into the other. So with this one, I'm going to grab this layer, left mouse click and drag this and drop it into my UV texture image. And I'm going to just resize this. So I've got this layer in here. I'm going to hit Control T to resize this. Let's size this out. Now it's not perfect because we don't have a top piece up there like that. So I'm just going to grab this stuff and scale it up some. Let's turn down the opacity of this layer so we can see through it. And the reason being able to see through it is that I can be able to fit this a little bit better. So I'm going to get this guy fit in right there. Grab this and kind of pull this around a little bit. That's okay. It's not bad. It's okay. So I'm going to bring this guy up some. Alright, so that looks good right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and get my marquee select tool. I'm going to come in here and grab this guy. Just like that. Get my move tool. I'm just going to move this up here to where this is supposed to be. So get my marquee tool again and grab this. Get my move tool. Let's make sure we don't get all of that. I'll take some of this marquee selection off right here. Alright, get my move tool and then grab this and drag this up here. Alright, so now that I have this laid out, I'm going to come back here and turn up the brightness of this, because everything is kind of laid out. If I look at my UVs, my image is inside of those green boxes. So those green boxes are kind of the edge of my UVs. So you want to make sure that everything you make goes inside of those green boxes on your UV sheet. So they do for the most part. So I'm going to get a white, I'm just going to get myself a brush. And I'm going to go ahead and use nothing but white. And I'm just going to go ahead and fill around this outside. Now it doesn't matter what's happening outside of the green square because it only fills in inside where the green square stops at. So it doesn't even see all this other crap that I'm doing on the outside of this. It's like it doesn't exist to the texture. I want to make sure I have it all white and no seams and stuff like that. So now with this, I'm going to take this and file. I'm going to save this as. Let's put it to the desktop, and I'm going to do this as a TIFF. I'm just going to call this dice underscore. This is going to be textured, and hit save. And I don't need it for Macintosh. I don't need any of that. Compression, I'm just going to leave everything the same. Hit OK. And it's fine. Just want to get it exported out. And minimize this. And let's go in here to Max. I'm going to hit M on the keyboard. And I'm going to come into my dice underscore UVW underscore unwrap. To this one, I'm going to go here to maps, go to my diffuse, and go to bitmap, and look, there's my dice textured right there. Click that. Now I need to make sure I turn on view in viewport, so I'm going to click on view this in viewport, and you can see that what I have is a perfectly unwrapped box that shows. I was about to say, I was like, oh my god, there's black on it, but it's not. It's just the shadow from the other box. Let's turn off the realistic shader here inside of Max. So you can see that Max, when I unwrap something and do it by hand, I can actually control what goes on each side of my box. And this is honestly the best way to do it. You don't want to just use this UV, this unwrap or this unwrap UVW map rather. You don't want to just use this, because this UVW map, while you can map some stuff onto your object, it doesn't really 100% make sure you keep stuff where you really want it. So the best bet to do is to come in here, unwrap things, and do it the old school way and lay out your UVs, render out a template, and then bring that template into Photoshop and then paint where you want images and whatnots to paint to be on your model. Other than that, I hope this answers some of your questions, and we will see you next time.